Hi, and welcome to Admin Chat, and thank you for listening in. I'm Paula Harding. I am an executive assistant at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine in the United Kingdom. 4 years ago, I had a light bulb moment where I realised I was both good at being an assistant and I absolutely loved it. I realised I had my dream job. I decided there and then to make myself the best assistant that I could be. Now I'm watching and I'm listening, and what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing spurs me on to never stop learning. We have an amazing opportunity to succeed in our roles, in our organisations. And we are now working in more of a hybrid capacity, with a blend of people working virtually from the office, or indeed working more for more than one organisation. So let me ask you, what makes you stand out? Why should people remember you? The role is changing all the time and becoming more and more competitive. As you'll have seen with the growth of social media, more and more assistants are realising the value that they add in business and are getting more and more involved. We therefore need to be constantly honing and adding to our skill set to ensure that we remain future-proof. So what would we normally do when we try and develop ourselves? We perhaps go online and look for the latest course or qualification. We wonder if we should improve our assertiveness or our time management. Or what about the latest bit of technology? Will it surprise you to know that most of us don't think about the tools we need to hone our servant leadership? Servant leadership is not a leadership style or technique as such. Rather, it's a way of behaving. A servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of people and the communities to which they belong. A good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly to do well, and to help those who are doing well to do even better. So, do you see yourself in this? A good assistant should be making their executive, their teams and organisations to be and feel the best that they can be. So how do we become a good servant leader? By finding things out, to determine what's going on, and then to challenge when necessary. Our executives are either busy or distracted and can't see the wood from the trees. We find things out by asking questions. Asking questions is an underrated skill. Learn this technique and you will elevate your career. So, what are questions and why do we need to use them? Questions are a tool used to obtain information. This is Columbo, and he was the main character in a successful detective crime drama series of the same name, which first aired in 1968. Now, Columbo was great at using questions. After a crime had taken place, Columbo would turn up and informally interview the suspect. Once he'd finished, or so they thought, he'd go to leave, but then he'd stop and turn around and he'd say, "Just one more thing." 4 years ago, I joined the International Coaching Academy in Liverpool. When I first started going, we would meet up in person, but as you can see here, we still catch up virtually. Now, I absolutely love going to the Academy and learning from the founder, John Haynes. Every week, John motivates us, inspires us, and he asks us lots of questions. It really brings about insight, and he brings me to places in my mind that I would never go. And as much as I love it, part of the sessions involve coaching each other. And this is the part of the sessions that I worry about every week. And sometimes I wonder whether I should go. And I had to ask myself why that was, and I realised it was because I wasn't very good at asking questions. It wasn't something I had ever thought about or made any effort to improve on. Who listening today has ever been taught how to ask a question? Were you taught in school? Or have you been on a training session through work? I wanted to learn how to get better at asking questions to improve my coaching, because as a coach, you use questions to enable people to reflect and to bring about their own solutions. As I said before, questions are a tool used to obtain information. I realised it had to do the same with being an assistant. We should be using questions to enable our executives to reflect and to bring about their own solutions, to challenge where required, and ask the questions that no one else is asking them. Even more so now, in this competitive industry, we need to be standing out from the competition and getting noticed. How do we do this? We make ourselves invaluable. We prove that we're different, and we do this by asking questions. Asking questions is the key to elevating our careers. During this session, I will talk you through the reasons why we aren't using questions more often, what questioning achieves, the benefits of being curious, and getting started with my 4A approach. We'll then take a look at my top 10 types of questions and use different techniques by using the words accelerator and ORID. And finally, how listening is the key to tying it all together. At the end of the session, I will share with you one of my favourite questions to ask. And I've only recently come across it and I absolutely love it. But the first question is, are you ready to start? Come on, let's crack on. So we know that asking questions is key. We know it makes our executives and organisations to feel and be the best that they can be. And we know it makes us stand out from the crowd. If questions are so crucial to elevating our careers, why aren't we using them more often? Maybe we want to avoid the risk of standing out, a fear that somehow asking a question will reveal our true nature and we'll be judged as stupid, wrong, or unworthy. Perhaps we worry that we'll ask the wrong question and be viewed as rude or intrusive. Maybe we will expose a truth that someone, perhaps even ourselves, doesn't want to be brought to light. Maybe we feel that it's not the right time, or we conclude that the answer is obvious, or that someone else must have asked, or simply like me, have never given it any thought and didn't realise how beneficial good questioning can be. So let's reflect for one moment. How do you feel about asking questions? If you had to rate yourself between 1 and 10, with 10 being the best that you could be, what number would you give yourself? Let's go through this session together and see how we can improve on that number. So what does questioning achieve? We understand now why we're not using questions as much as we could. If you understood what questioning achieves, would this make you want to really focus in on this? Questioning is a uniquely powerful tool that is used to unlock valuable information. The knowledge, insights, and clarity gained enables better decisions to be made. Better decisions being made will result in a more successful organisation. Being able to ask questions is therefore an essential skill in business. So what's in it for our executives? Our executives are busy people. They have many hats to wear and pressures on them to perform and achieve. They are the leader who has to make difficult decisions and at the same time build relationships, and as I said before, they don't always have the time or headspace to see the wood through the trees. Imagine being with your executives and using questions that give them the headspace to stop and reflect. We can challenge them to see a different perspective, to solve problems or to strengthen their thinking and develop new ideas, ultimately improving the business. Maybe they don't want to go home and talk to their friends and family about the issues they are having. Or maybe they have no one else to talk to. Be the confidant, be the ally, and be the sounding board. Imagine being able to give that gift. By asking the deeper, more probing questions, you will build a stronger relationship between you and your executive, and they will come to value your counsel. Okay, so that's what's in it for them. But what about us? It's not just about our executives, this is about elevating our careers. We are really good at our jobs and we're often overlooked or not given the recognition we deserve. Why is that? It's because we don't make ourselves visible. We don't speak up, we don't challenge. So for example, in meetings we sit in, we hear the discussions and have our questions. But some of us, we don't ask. And then a colleague will ask the question and we sit there and think, I thought of that. Well, who gets noticed? And it's not just meetings, it's in everyday interactions. All interactions are a platform for us to show our value and make ourselves visible. Asking questions enables us to find out about people, their situations, to know what is on their minds and what is important to them. When you know what is important to people, you can start to work out where we can help them. We are making them feel heard and valued, which improves our relationships. We become more interesting to them. We start to become known as someone with the answers and as a problem solver. What we are doing is building our influence. And when we have influence, we open up the world around us and elevate our careers. Okay, so what else is in it for us? How many times have you been shown the slide? The Future of Jobs report for 2018 lists for 2022 the top 10 skills. I wonder if you've ever looked at this slide and considered what skill tied all these together. If you look at each area, can you see how by improving our questioning skills, we can find out the information we need to improve our ability to be analytical and innovative, to think strategically, to evaluate, use reasoning and solve problems, to demonstrate leadership and social influence, and to develop emotional intelligence. On top of that, finding out information will help us to challenge our assumptions, dismiss ideas, or prevent jumping to conclusions. By using the power of questions, we build our skills in many different areas, which leads to building our reputation and credibility with our executives and our organisations. Again, this is elevating our careers. So now we realise the importance of asking questions. We understand the relationships and trust that can be built, and the result of being respected and valued. By learning the art of questioning, we know that this will tie in a whole manner of other highly rated skills in business. So how do we get better at asking questions? The first thing to do is to be curious. Be curious about everyone and everything. It is said that adults have lost their childish curiosity, but I don't believe that. I think it's just that we just don't know how to ask, or are afraid to ask out loud. What else do we know about curiosity? Curiosity killed the cat. Allegedly. What we didn't get to hear was that whilst curiosity did kill the cat, satisfaction brought it back. The cat's curiosity is us posting a question and hunting for the answer. The cat being killed is finding the answer and possibly not liking it. But the satisfaction is knowing that we found the answer ourselves and built on that new knowledge. As much as curiosity killed the cat, curiosity helped it survive. Being curious is the urge to explore and gain knowledge about our constantly changing environment. It's about being inquisitive and constantly looking to improve ourselves and others. When your curiosity is genuine to help other people, its presence makes you feel alive and energetic. Since the mind is like a muscle which becomes stronger through continual exercise, the mental exercise caused by curiosity makes our mind stronger and stronger. By being curious, we will be able to see new worlds and possibilities which are normally not visible. It will gain us nuggets of information that could be used in the future. Tap into this curiosity. So, to get better at questioning, we start building our curiosity. But now is the time to start planning, and we can do that with my 4A approach. The first A is to acquire. Acquiring information and what it is we want to know. Is it facts, direction, an opinion, or advice? Think about what we need to accomplish. Consider when would be the best time to ask, who we need to ask, or when we need the information by. The second A is authenticity. The intent behind our questions is important. A good question is sincere with a genuine interest and curiosity. The third A is to activate. To become a better questioner, we need to have the courage to start asking more questions. Please don't ask fewer questions because you're trying to come up with the perfect one. If we don't ask, The answer is always no. Asking questions is a skill we can develop, and as with anything in life, we have to practice, or in this case, activate. Whilst we are asking questions, we need to think about the body language and what message we are sending out. Frame our questions with a positive, confident, and friendly, approachable tone. Now, the fourth and final A is apprehension. Try not to make people feel interrogated with question after question. Be careful that what we are asking doesn't make our colleague feel that they are being accused, as this immediately puts people in defense mode. Don't make it personal. Ask about the wider picture. Don't hijack the conversation by sharing something personal the moment the other person shares something. We all know how irritating that can be. And finally, be careful about asking personal questions. Many people, and myself included, are very private and don't like being asked lots of personal questions. So we know why it's important to be curious, and we've been through my 4A approach. Now we need to consider the types of questions we may want to use. There are so many types of questions, we could really replace this with a top 40. I've picked out my top 10, and I'd recommend that we use them in a combination for different circumstances. So pop pickers, here is this week's top 10. In at number 10 are open questions. An open question encourages conversation. For example, what seems to be the issue here? It draws out information and enables us to find new perspectives. In at number 9 are closed questions. Now, closed questions are often seen as the bad boys, yet in fact, closed questions are really useful. Closed questions give us specifics and quick answers. For example, who is going to be responsible for the report? In at number 8 is the follow-up question. Follow-up questions help clarify a comment and continue the discussion in more detail. By using a different question, a new perspective can be gained. Start follow-up questions with any of the who, what, where, when, why, or how questions. For example, how important is that to you? In at number 7 are probing questions. Probing questions are investigative and dig deeper into the initial answers and narrow them down. For example, I see, why do you think that happened? Or what is the main point for us to pay attention to here? We could think about it this way. The open question at number 1 is used to get them talking. The probing question here at number 7 gets us the value. That's what I referred to by using a combination of the different types. In at number 6, exploratory. Whereas probing is digging, exploratory looks for the additional information. So for example, what if? Or what else? We are elevating them to consider alternatives or possibilities that perhaps they hadn't considered. In at number 5, clarifying. This is used when information is unclear. What do you mean? How often will you need this? Or as I used before, on a scale of 1 to 10, how urgent is this? In at number 4, hypothetical. This is a great technique for expanding beyond limitations of a discussion, spark creativity. So for example, let's just say that it was possible for us to double our profit. What would be the next steps? Or we could throw in a bit of reciprocity and say, well, suppose I was to do this. What then would you be able to do? In at number 3 is reflective questions. This enables us to look back on a decision or a situation and identify the lessons to be learned. So, in your experience, why do you think that happened? And what could we do differently going forwards? In at number 2 are research questions. This looks at what is actually happening. So an example would be, what are the facts here? And finally, in at number 1, decisional questions. What are your next steps? When will you do it? As I said before, mix them up and use a combination of the different types of questions. Ooh, we've looked at some of the types of questions we can use. Now we'll look at a number of different techniques. Techniques being the way that we ask the questions. And we're going to use the word accelerator as a guide. The first A is to advance your preparation with a template or a list. Don't be afraid to create a template or a checklist and take it to meetings and use this as a guide to ask the different types of questions we spoke about earlier. So for example, we have the types of questions in the first column, questions in the middle, and space for the answers in the end. The second template is one I actually use for a major event planning meeting at work. I got an A3 piece of paper and I crafted out the 6 sections: what, why, when, where, who, and how. I considered each area prior to the meeting to develop my own ideas, but then I was able to build on it at the meeting. If you don't want to take the templates or checklists with you, keep them around you and familiarise yourself with them from time to time. If you are ever in a situation where you want to make certain all questions have been asked, run through in your head the what, the why, the when, the where, the who, and the how. So moving on to C, create a space after the answer with a pause. One of the most effective tools for eliciting more information is to pause after we have asked a question. This can be accompanied by a facial expression that invites comment. The person you're speaking to will want to fill the silence. Check your body language and check that it mirrors the question you are asking. The way a question is projected by us gives it importance. Imagine yourself asking a question. If we want interest, lean forward and project interest, looking the person in the eye. If we are standing up, turn to face the person and adopt a confident pose. Use hand gestures and facial expressions. The signals we send are as important as the words that we use. Engage your voice. Frame your questions clearly with a positive tone. Not only does this display confidence, it leaves them with a pleasant memory of our engagement. Remember, this is all part of building our influence. Leverage the meaning to your high impact words by using emphasis. So for example, what exactly is the budget this year? Or are you certain this material was from our preferred supplier? Establish the personality and preferences of the person we are asking the questions to and act accordingly. For example, if they are creative and upbeat, say, oh, I've had this amazing idea. What do you think about it? Reach out with in-the-moment coaching questions. Help them to reflect by asking thought-provoking questions. How do you feel about this? What concerns you the most? or during a catch-up meeting? What would you like to focus on today? Adopt a business model approach. So, for example, you could use a SWOT or a PESTLE analysis. Use the models to ask questions such as, well, if we did this, the opportunities would be, or if we didn't do this, what would the threats be? Take time to summarise the answer. This not only shows that we've been listening, but it also helps them to hear their own answer. Open up and be humble. If you don't understand, say so. So you could say, I have to be honest, I don't understand what you're saying, but I really want to. Imagine the wrong direction we could go down if we didn't understand what was said and the implications this could bring. We want to improve our credibility and influence, not ruin it. Resist the urge not to persist. Don't get discouraged. If we ask a question and they haven't got time, say, if not today, when? Or if we ask a question and the answer is no, what will it take to be a yes the next time? Or what would it change? What would it take to change your mind? Or even, would you change your mind if? Be the one to challenge. Think about it like the fairy tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. The fairy tale tells a story of a vain emperor who was fooled into believing he had been given the most exquisite clothes by two swindling weavers, so unique that the clothes were invisible. The truth was that he was wearing no clothes. During a procession through the city, no townfolk were brave enough to ask the emperor why he wasn't wearing any clothes. Except one child. Be that one child. Be the one to challenge, to offer constructive criticism, and importantly, be the one to stop your organisations going down the wrong direction. Oh, there's quite a lot of information there, and even though I've been looking into improving my ability to ask questions, I also have more to learn. And as I said to you before, I believe that we should never stop learning. I'm currently part of a 6-week storytelling course with Andrew Thorpe, and only last week he taught us a new technique which was so helpful I wanted to share it with you. It's the ORID method. This is a structured conversation developed by the Institute for Cultural Affairs as a means to analysing facts and feelings, to ask about implications, and to make decisions intelligently. It asks 4 types of questions in a sequence. Objective. Identify objective facts relevant to the topic. So what do we know about this? Reflective. Ask questions about how people feel about the topic. Interpretative. The I questions are to do with meaning. What does it mean for me, you, or the organisation? And finally, the D, decisional. Based on the information coming from the 3 previous stages of questioning, the D questions lead to a decision. What are we going to do? Picture yourself in a meeting and being able to use this technique. By helping the organisation to make a decision, we are solving problems. And as we said before, we'll become more visible. And last, but by no means least, we come on to listening. Listening means being fully present, bringing our whole self to the conversation. Being fully present is an extraordinary gift that we can give to another person. If we ask a question and we don't listen, people won't want to talk to us, and we block our future opportunities to ask questions. You know, sometimes you get asked about your holiday and you maybe get asked where you go. You could say Italy, and then they jump in and say, well, I've been there, and we did this, and we did that. It stops you right in your tracks, doesn't it? And you feel disappointed that the person isn't really interested in us at all. If we're going to ask a question, let's listen to the answer. So how do we become effective listeners? We have to start getting comfortable with asking and waiting, showing that we are engaged in the response, even if it is not maybe what we want to hear. If they pause, resist the urge to jump in and fill the hole in the conversation. You'll be surprised that when you wait just a little bit longer, they will want to fill the silence and will tell us something they may not have done before. It's important that we don't interrupt. If we do that, we will interrupt their train of thought and they may forget what they were going to tell us. If you interrupt, we will never know what we could have learned. When someone is answering your question, don't think about your next question. That defeats the whole point of asking questions in the first place. Focus on what is being said instead. And a great way to show that you've been listening is to summarize or clarify. What I hear you saying is, that's interesting. What did you mean by? People may not remember what we asked, but they will remember that we listened. And it all comes back to making people feel valued, building relationships, and most importantly, building the influence that opens doors and elevates our careers. And so we've come to the end, and I want to remind you that we have been on quite some journey. Now we know the art of questioning, and we know what is important to make us stand out from the crowd. By using questions for our executives to stop and think and acting as a confidant, we become valued and we build those important relationships and increase our influence, elevating our career and opening up the world around us. We've identified that being able to ask questions forms part of many highly rated skills in business. By being curious and authentically showing genuine interest, we can find out the information we need to add value. We reviewed my 4A approach and my top 10 types of questions to get started. By using the words accelerator and ORID, we gained an understanding of the different techniques to help us with the way that we ask questions for more impact. And finally, we tied it all together by listening, making our colleagues feel heard and valued, and in turn, increasing our influence. At the beginning, I said that I would share with you one question I had heard recently, which I've fallen in love with. It was during an online storytelling summit, and the interviewer asked all his guests at the end of their sessions, "What's the one thing I haven't asked you that I should have?" Genius! Can you see by how asking this question, it helps both parties? It signals confidence that maybe we didn't ask all the right questions. It builds rapport. Your interviewee is pleased with the opportunity to say something that is important to them and ultimately unlocks key pieces of information. I asked you earlier how you would rate yourself on the ability to ask questions from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best that you could be. How do you feel now? I really hope that your number has increased. Oh, and just one more thing. What will you do next? I would encourage you to go away and practice with your friends, your family, or colleagues. You have access to many different types of questions, and you can build on the techniques and use a combined approach to achieve the best outcome. Develop your styles, develop your lists and templates, and most importantly, develop your courage. As I shared with you at the beginning, servant leadership is not a leadership style or technique as such. Rather, it is a way of behaving. A good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly to do well, and to help those who are doing well to do even better. So can you see yourself in this? We can work with our executives, teams and our organisations to ensure that they are and feel the best that they can be. Let's become the best servant leaders. Let's elevate our careers. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and thank you to the Executive Secretary team for this opportunity.